Hello and welcome to the Make Money with Mace podcast. I'm your host, Mace, and today we're going to be talking a lot of Super Bowl bets, prop bets, who I think is going to win, total matchups to look out for. I'll have a more in-depth article regarding prop bets and things like that as soon as we do go live. So I say we go live. Sunday morning I'll have my full prop bet sheet and things like that. But today I'm just going to be talking pure football, previewing the game, and then giving my pick based on that. So let's just dive right into it. We have the 2019 Super Bowl rematch, but these teams could not be more different from when they played back then. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback of that team, and you have very few players. I think it's only 11 49ers remaining from that team, and I don't know the Chiefs' numbers in terms of who was still on the roster. But obviously, these teams are very different from each other from when they first played. So, getting into that, I'd like to first talk about, matchup-wise, I would like to talk about the 49ers against the Chiefs defense. I want to talk about 49ers offense against Chiefs defense, because that's what I think is going to be the key matchup of this whole thing, right? Because the Chiefs defense is great, so we're going strength on strength here, right? So, let's just talk about it. Starting off, obviously, Brock Purdy at quarterback. Solid year. Obviously, really pretty lucky in these playoffs, especially, where he has the comebacks in the fourth quarter, but they're not really... The Packers' comeback, you can say, is more attributed to him. Can't really say that the comeback against... I would say the comeback against the Lions was just pure luck. In all honesty, like that Ayuk catch is ridiculous. The Gibbs fumble is ridiculous. Josh Reynolds dropping balls is ridiculous. So can't really count on that again. And Purdy's going to be facing a defense that, frankly, is going to have the upper hand on him because he is just really poor against quality defenses. Not just quality defenses. He's very poor against defenses that mix it up, throw different looks at you, all that stuff, and there's only so much you can do when you've never seen it before. So that's sort of the main focus, I think, of this matchup is Brock Purdy. Can he diagnose Spagnuolo? Because if he can't, there's going to be a problem. And I want to talk about specifically why I think it's going to be such a problem, right? So you've got excuse me, just something popped up on my computer. You've got a quarterback who has fared pretty poorly against exotic looks and spinning the wheel, like rotating coverages, all that stuff, and spinning on the back end, all that craziness. And when he's faced defensive coordinators willing to do that, like Baltimore, Minnesota, Cleveland, and what was the other team? They're in my head that they lost to: Minnesota, Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati. Obviously, since these defense is not nearly as good as those other teams I mentioned, but they are very exotic in their coverage. They tend to limit big plays, all that good stuff. Very disciplined defenses that play their run fits very soundly, all that sort of thing. And that's what Kansas City does. Obviously, they can be run on. Teams have chosen not to do that. But I'm really interested in how Shanahan's going to attack the rushing weakness, because obviously McCaffrey is explosive. He's a great running back, and I think you got to lean on him this game and overcome the run blitzes that are going to go his way. And he has to be creative and get Yushik out there and do all that sort of stuff to really have the edge in this game, because I think the receivers are going to be neutralized. Truly, like, I know that's crazy to say, oh, like, how do you neutralize Debo, Ayuk, and Jawan Jennings and all that stuff? The Kansas City corners might be the most underrated position group in the NFL. L'Jarius Sneed's a monster. That dude is a mean press man corner who is just excellent at what he does. I think he'll line up against Ayuk because that's the traditional matchup. I think Trent McDuffie, who's an excellent slot corner, is going to be responsible for Deebo Samuel. Obviously, Deebo's bigger and stronger than he is, but McDuffie is very solid in coverage, and I think we're going to see some nice gang tackling. So, going to be really good football to watch on the outside for sure. Obviously, Jawan Jennings is a really good player who just lines up in the slot, converts third downs. Joshua Williams or Trent McDuffie, whoever they put on him, because I could see Williams going on Debo too for the height advantage. And just height-wise, Snead and Ayuk. Snead's bigger than Ayuk, so I think that will be advantage Snead. Obviously, all excellent players, so it should be really fun to watch. But I think because everything's going to be tight window, we're going to see Purdy struggle to push the ball downfield in those tight windows. He can make the throws, but I haven't seen him do it consistent enough to really trust him to do it to wide receivers. So I think McCaffrey's going to be a huge impact. He's going to have a huge impact on this game. Running the football, probably behind Trent Williams, because who else are you going to do it behind? And take advantage of the fact that the Chiefs linebackers are better coverage backers than they are rush backers. And their safeties are not as good too. And that's what I want to talk about, because the way the 49ers can win this game is if they target George Kittle. For whatever reason, Kittle is not targeted very often in the postseason. He just isn't. I get his impact as a run blocker is massive. He's like an extra offensive lineman out there. Just an excellent run blocker. The Chiefs' defense is significantly better against wide receivers than they are tight ends. And I know that the Ravens didn't take advantage of that very well, and they made life difficult. But Kittle can be a nightmare matchup-wise if they're willing to attack the middle of the field and give him those deep posts and give him those seam shots, because Justin Reed and Mike Edwards cannot hang with him. They just can't. Willie Gay can't run with him. Nick Bolton can't run with him. They need to be willing to target Kittle downfield and get Kittle in space and design things for him that take advantage of the mismatch, because there is no mismatch on the outside. It's all like I said, Snead, Joshua Williams, and Trent McDuffie do line up really well against Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Jawan Jennings. So when you have a clear advantage at a position, you need to take advantage of that, and that's what the Ravens failed to do. That's what the Bills failed to do, because they kept targeting the outside. Give some credit, the Chiefs do a really good job of forcing throws to the outside into those tight windows where their corners can really shine. So it's hard to really put blame on anybody. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking in terms of this matchup. Skill position wise, the offense and defensive line, I think that it's weird, right? Because I think that the scheme Shanahan employs, because it's obviously a solid scheme, they use Kittle, they use Juszczyk, they beef up the offensive line, especially in the run game, where they look a lot better than they actually are. And I think in the passing game, they can really be had. Pass rush wise, I think Chris Jones is going to eat rushing up the middle, as he typically does. I think Trent Williams is going to be the only person who consistently wins one-on-one. I think Karlaftis can have a day against McKivitz. And obviously the linebackers aren't very good, and you're going to need McCaffrey to really bust stuff open against them. Again, they've been better in pass. They've been better in coverage, not really great in the run game this year, these Chiefs linebackers. And you're going to really need them to step up in this game and really tackle, really hit hard, and make the day long. Justin Reed's done a really good job as a box safety doing that, but we're going to have to see a better overall performance from the Chiefs middle of the field secondary to take advantage of but beat back the Kansas City. Jesus. Speaking over myself. We're going to need to see Kansas City's middle of the defense, their backers and safeties, beat back the San Francisco rushing attack to really have a good impact on this game. And I think they can beat the offensive linemen. They just need to tackle in the holes and not allow for 2 yards to become 4 yards and that sort of thing. Keep them off schedule. But really, San Francisco needs to attack the middle of the field with Kittle. Kittle's been amazing. I think he's the best tight end in the NFL, and it's not particularly close. Blocking is valuable. I believe in positional versatility and that sort of thing. So, yeah, definitely going to need to see Kittle have a huge impact on this game. I think prop bet wise, you should try to target him. Purdy doesn't love targeting Kittle all that much, and that's the thing. And the checkdowns are going to get covered because Spagnuolo, that's the matchup really, Spagnuolo versus Shanahan, because I think Andy Reid has a schematic advantage against anybody, honestly. Um, so Spagnuolo against Shanahan is going to be what to watch. What do they do schematically to bother each other? And Spagnuolo has an amazing track record, so I think it's sort of advantage defense for Kansas City until Brock Purdy shows that he can really do it against a quality defense from the AFC, because that's something he's never done. Obviously, he's only been starting for 1.5 years, but his record against the AFC is bizarre because you think you'd have a worse record against teams you see more, right? When he's never seen it before, he doesn't function very well as a starter. So it's interesting to think about, but I think that this matchup is, like I said, offense versus defense. I think Kansas City lines up really well. Obviously, sometimes it just doesn't matter how well you match up against San Fran because they've got all pros everywhere. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy offensive skill player wise. You just got to hope that Purdy gets them the ball on time and accurately in ways where they allow the skill players to make plays. And if you're a San Fran better, if you're a Chiefs better, you just got to really think about Spagnuolo putting his guys in the right position to succeed, and those corners really shutting down the outside and funneling everything into the middle where it's easier to make plays. So that's what I'm thinking in terms of this matchup. And if we flip it over to the other side, right? And for reference, I don't do the 4-3-3. It's nickel against 11 is typically how I like to look at things. Obviously, 11 personnel, for those wondering, is one tight end, one running back. I think that you do see a lot of 21 personnel, which is two running backs, one tight end, because of Juszczyk. And I think we could potentially see some base, like true base, where it's 4-3-4. In that true base, Leo Chenal is a really solid, strong side, run stuffing linebacker. And if, it's a good matchup to have, honestly, with Chenal. So I'm wondering if Shanahan will go away from using 21 personnel or 12 personnel with the two tight ends where, different guys are split out on the two tight end, big offensive line sort of sets. Chenal will be massive in that stopping the run, and he's solid in pass coverage. He's just a really good linebacker, but he doesn't really see the field unless he's in base, or unless the Chiefs are in base, rather. And I think that it'd be wise of the 49ers to force Chenal off the field by using empty sets, potential like 13 personnel. 13, geez, 13 would be wild. 3 tight end sets. I do love 3 tight end sets, truly. But I think we're going to see a lot of 11 personnel that sort of throws off what Kansas City really wants to do defensively and forces nickel, which forcing nickel for them isn't the worst thing in the world, but keeping Chenal off the field will be massive for San Fran. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking in terms of the defense versus offense for Kansas City's defense against San Fran's offense. I'm going to flip it over to the other side of the ball, where I think this actually gets really pretty interesting, right? Because on paper, especially in coverage, passing downs, I should say, rather, you have a lot of good-looking players, right? Nick Bosa, monster off the edge. Chase Young is not that good. Somebody has to be willing to say it. Chase Young is just not really particularly good at football. What he's asked to do, I should say. But I think what we're going to see is a lot of 2 tight end sets out of Kansas City, because that's what they operate best out of. Obviously, their tackles are not particularly good. Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith are not particularly good football players at this stage in their careers. And no Joe Tooney, so Nick Allegretti has to stand in again. He's going to have to be protected. And Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are awesome. I've talked about how awesome they are so many times, so I don't want to bore everybody again, but those two are going to Eric Armstead's so big that I think he's just going to get out leveraged by Trey Smith, and Creed Humphrey against Javon Hargrave should be a really fun matchup to watch. They might even line up Hargrave instead of They probably are going to line him up 3-tech most of the time so that the matchup is splitting Allegretti and Donovan Smith instead of splitting Allegretti and Creed Humphrey, because Humphrey's just going to win that all day. And again, Chase Young's been really bad. He's been really bad in the playoffs, too. He's not setting the edge. He's not giving effort on pass rushes. It's bizarre. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that I think he's going to get run at a lot. I think Pacheco off tackle towards Chase Young is going to be their bread and butter, and they're going to need Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner to make plays at the hole over and over and over and over again. And eventually Pacheco's just going to wear him down. And I think that this is where the Chiefs almost want to play ball control, right? These aren't the Chiefs that with Tyreek Hill, we're going crazy with explosives 24/7. Obviously, Rashee Rice can do it. He's a really good ball player. Travis Kelce can do it. Valdez-Scantling is good for a deep ball game. But I think we're going to see a lot of ball control, and Andy Reid just needs to not fall in love with the pass, because off tackle or up the middle towards Armstead or Hargrave, honestly, I think Armstead's a better run defender than Hargrave, but they're both not good at it. Yeah, Hargrave's a really bad run defender this year. So I think running at Hargrave, running at Chase Young, running towards that potential weak side, right, is like the, not boundaries, yeah, because running towards Young to the field side as opposed to the boundary side where Valdez-Scantling will probably line up, running towards Young is going to be the way that they consistently move the ball instead of play action, and just try to get Young in the picture as much as possible in the run game. And then Ambry Thomas is probably going to be the target in the passing game. Obviously, Fred Warner's amazing in coverage. Dre Greenlaw's a really solid linebacker overall. Tayshaun Gibson's a decent free safety sort of receiver. He's a decent free safety. Exactly what he is. He's like a center fielder free safety. And what the 49ers are going to want to do is keep Ambry Thomas off the field and get like Diamonor Lenore in the slot and try to force it, basically use Lenore to cover Noah Gray as much as they can, or Rashee Rice, because Ambry Thomas is going to get cooked by Rashee Rice. So that's sort of the matchup to watch there. And yeah, I think the 49ers are weird, right? Because they have a good rushing DVOA. Teams didn't really run on them all that much in the regular season because they were throwing to get back in games. And when you have to throw to get back in games, you end up creating that dynamic of like no one's really running the ball against you. Is your rush defense actually good? And we're sort of finding out that they're not particularly good. They're not a good rush defense. And in finding that out, I think it's fair to call it out, right? They're not a good rush defense, and Pacheco is a monster in the running game. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are monsters. You can run behind them all day. And I think Donovan Smith, while he's been pretty bad this year, he's going to be able to have his way with Chase Young, right? They're going to have to the 49ers are going to have to figure out a way to really set the edge and really go hard at setting the edge and give Young extra help. Or maybe he actually shows up. Maybe the rookie form actually shows up. So it's sort of hard to count on, right? You don't really have somebody who's shown any sort of consistency. And they're going to double team Bosa. They're going to try to keep Nick Bosa out of the game. I think they're going to chip him a lot. I think that they're going to try to, annoy him, especially against Jawan Taylor, because Jawan Taylor is not particularly good. They haven't really faced too many outstanding edge rushers, and that's where I think the 49ers defense can win this game, is if Bosa goes crazy against Jawan Taylor, which is very possible, and if Chase Young is able to really take advantage of a matchup he should have the advantage in. Obviously against Taylor Decker's eating his lunch all day, every day. But Chase Young should be able to beat old man Donovan Smith over and over and over again. You just can't count on him to do it. So that's where I think this game can be won, is if the 49ers get a lead and they're able to pass rush and they're able to beat the tackles over and over and over again and make Mahomes run for his life. I just don't know if the 49ers coverage will hold up because their safeties are not particularly good, and I think they're really going to miss Talanoa Hufanga this game, because Hufanga would make plays all over the field, in this sort of game, and really, nothing would be had over the middle. You could use him as a blitzer. You could really be creative and use him as a chess piece in the way that the Ravens used Kyle Hamilton to really ruin a lot of schemes, right? Hamilton was the best player on the field, I think, in the second half of any of the players, right? He was incredible. And it just didn't matter as much because the offense wasn't able to do anything. When you're missing a guy who could be that sort of chess piece, you move him all over, you create a headache for the offense, it's felt because the big play has been able to be had on the 49ers these entire playoffs against Green Bay and Detroit. And now they're facing a team that can create those chunk plays, but is just a sappy taking a check down here or there and will slowly control the ball all the way down to the field. And all of a sudden, Travis Kelce scored another touchdown. They're that sort of team this year. And I think you keep the 49ers offense off the field as long as you can, because even though I think that the Chiefs defense does actually match up with them fairly well, I think that the you don't want to give chances to Kittle, Debo, McCaffrey, and Ayuk over and over and over again, because eventually they'll break one. They're too good to give that many opportunities to. So you're going to want to see the Chiefs. If you're a Chiefs bettor, you're going to want to see the Chiefs hold the ball, really long drives, keep it low scoring, all that sort of thing, because something that isn't talked about as much is pace of play, right? And you think of pace of play is almost like a basketball stat, because it is, right? But pace of play is actually a huge factor, right? The 49ers, funnily enough, play some of the slowest football of anybody. They take about 30 seconds of the 40 on average each play. They run on offense, right? They're a really slow offense getting in, getting out, but they get explosives all the time. And that per play stuff, it just keeps the opposing defense on the field longer, even when you do get those explosives, right? The Chiefs didn't really have the same. I mean, the difference between 30.42 seconds and 27.86 seconds doesn't seem monumental, but that adds up over a game. And I think that we're going to see almost like a pace of playoff, right? Where it's like, can the 49ers hold the ball long enough to keep Mahomes off the field? And can the Chiefs do the same thing? How lengthy will these possessions be? Because I think you almost want a long possession each time they have the ball. And you just want to sort of dink and dunk your way down the field, get the opposing defense tired. And especially in the case of the 49ers, you do not want Chris Jones fresh. You do not want Karlaftis fresh. You don't want that corner room fresh. You want them running all over the place and being really tired by the end of the game. And that's where the pace of play matters. I think San Fran's going to have to matriculate the ball down the field, as they say. So, yeah. Didn't really talk about DVOA all that much, just because I don't think at this point DVOA doesn't really matter. Obviously, it doesn't. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. But in terms of like the metrics are results driven, but when it comes to Super Bowls and even AFC Championship stuff, like you want individual matchups more than you want anything, right? Individual matchups are sort of what makes this thing go. And the individual matchups to look out for are, Donovan Smith against Chase Young, the Chiefs corners against the 49ers wide receivers, how they match up, how they game plan for each other. I should just say the edge rushers, the 49ers edges, Bosa and Young against Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith. Can the tackles hold up long enough for Mahomes to be successful? The interior offensive line of the Chiefs, which has been standout all year, even without Tooney, I think that Humphrey and Smith are enough to really attack downfield in the run game with Pacheco, who's just a battering ram. Can the Chiefs receivers have impact against what's been a pretty shaky secondary overall? And like those are the key matchups to watch. And in terms of what I'm thinking, right? Betting against Patrick Mahomes feels silly at this point. It truly does. Doesn't seem smart. Doesn't seem like good business, right? So when you have that sort of, guess I should say, when you have the Mahomes and that Chiefs defense and a coaching advantage, because I do think Andy Reid against Steve Wilkes in terms of offensive game plan against defensive game planning, Andy Reid has the advantage. Shanahan against Spagnuolo's even. But what really worries me is Purdy versus the AFC. That's a weird stat. That's a stat that doesn't make sense. And a stat that will frankly continue, because what that tells me is that he's not great at diagnosing exotic looks, and Spagnuolo is a freak who's been around for so long, has seen everything. And when you have that someone like that defensively who can really make your corners, how should I say this? Someone like Steve Spagnuolo makes the entire defense better, right? And when you make the entire defense better, it makes, like, they're more sound, they're more fundamental. Like, there's not going to be coverage busts. There's not going to be broken plays. You're going to have good run fits. You're going to have the right coverages. No one's going to be confused. And when you have that, you need your quarterback to just make a play. And even though the 49ers have had better weapons who force those coverage busts, who can just beat their guys one-on-one, when you have those guys, it matters. It doesn't matter as much if the tight window throws aren't being made. And like I said, Purdy scares me on that, because he has tried to give the game away multiple times, and the Packers and Lions just did not take it. The Chiefs are going to take it. Obviously, I could be wrong, but I'm not confident enough in Brock Purdy to elevate his guys, because obviously he has elevated this team past where Jimmy G had them. But at the same time, like Cam Newton said, like, it's not really an insult to say Brock Purdy is not even one of the 10 best players on his team, when Trent Williams is a Hall of Famer, Kittle's a Hall of Famer, Ayuk's a first-team All-Pro, Debo's been first-team All-Pro, McCaffrey's been first-team All-Pro. Then you go over to defense, where you got Warner, Greenlaw, Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, and Talanoa Hufanga. Obviously, Hufanga's not playing, but when healthy, it's not really an insult. The roster's insane. And Purdy's shaky, but he has that Eli Manning clutch factor. So it's hard to just sort of like completely ignore that. But I do think that he's going to struggle, because he struggled against these types of defenses this year. That's the only times he's really shown issues, is against opponents he's not familiar with, who really make him think post-snap, where the look pre-snap does not match the post-snap, and Spagnuolo loves to do that. And that's where I really think the Chiefs are going to win this game. I think that Chiefs money line is probably going to be my pick, because I don't like that. I don't like that Kansas City's not. I don't like that the Kansas City's not favored. I don't like it's not a pick 'em, because I think too much respect's being given to San Fran, despite their really shaky playoff performances. I kind of love the under 47.5. The way the Chiefs have been playing games is teams are not scoring a lot, and they're not scoring a lot. So 47.5 feels pretty rich for a game that probably ends up like 23-17, 23-20. This game is going to be tight. I really do think that. So, yeah. This has been the Super Bowl preview. I'll have a blog for this as well. And the blog is going to be focused on some prop picks. I think, prop stuff like George Kittle over receiving yards, I think that's going to hit. I think the line's for relatively low. Let me take a look at goodoldcoverage.com. See what the prop stuff's at. Where's Kittle? Yeah, Kittle, 3.5 receptions. I think that he could go over that. Kittle's going to be a huge X factor in this game, just because the safeties are not that good in coverage for Kansas City. Noah Gray, I think you can count on two catches. So, yeah. This has been the preview. You'll be able to read more. And as you read more, I'm going to do more like daily stuff, maybe some daily live stream sort of stuff when it comes to some basketball bets, do some recaps, do it at night. and have some fun with it. And yeah, gonna do some baseball preview stuff coming up, sort of like a team a day thing. Gonna start the preview process with team a day, 30 days in, 30 days out, a little bit of blog here and there, all of that good stuff. And yeah, thank you everybody for listening this NFL season. Hope you'll join me for another. Peace.